Okay, so hopefully you are able to complete those front problems through J. And now we're going to actually get into a little bit more of the meat of what we're doing, which is now we're going to plug in equations instead of just numbers. So up here I'm going to use this as my F equation. And this is in red my G equation. Oops, there's my G equation. And now what we're going to do is, it's important if you have some colors because you can plug in things. We're going to try to find these answers, okay? So to begin with, we're going to do some answers with some specific numbers, if these are the X inputs that we plug in. And then we're going to also way down here start plugging in some generic X's. And that's when we get to equations. But first here what we'll do is, this is the composition because it's F, then parentheses, then G again. So on this problem, we are going to have G of -2 first because we start on our innermost parentheses. And we are going to find G of -2. So G of -2 means you take the G equation, you plug in -2. It's always important that you, wherever you see an X, you put a parentheses. All right, so here is an X. I'm putting parentheses where X is. I'm going to plug in what X is. I want X to be -2. Square that plus 4. And if you do not put a parentheses here, you will not get the right answer because your calculator will not do the order of operations correctly. Parentheses wherever you see an X, and then copy down exactly what you see. In this case, -2 squared is 4, plus 4 more is 8. We have an answer so far of 8. We're going to plug 8 in right here, and now we're going to do F of 8, because we want F of whatever that last answer was. So F of 8, we use the F equation. Here's a 3. I copy the 3 down. There's my X. Put parentheses wherever X goes, and plug in what X you want, which is 8. And then subtract 1. 3 times 8 is 24. Subtract 1. Our final answer, because we're finished after this part, is 23. So with your table, I want you to try and check off B and C the exact same way. So go ahead and pause the video and try those. Once you're done with that, we're going to go on to the next part, which is where it gets a little more tricky, but you can do this. We have now G, only this time it's of the number 2x. It's not of a specific value like -2 or +2 or even 0. It's the 2x. So now we're going to still do the exact same equation. We're going to use the G equation. We're going to plug in 2x wherever we see an x. Well, come to our G equation. Here's an x to start. It happens to be x squared. We're going to put parentheses where the x goes, and we're going to plug in 2x there. And then we're going to copy whatever we see. We see a squared, then we see a plus sign, then we see a 4. And all we're doing is copying that. We're not thinking at all. We're just saying take out that x from the G equation, plug in 2x, because that's what it tells us to do. All right, well, then we do the order of operations. 2x squared means 2 squared, and x squared, and then plus 4 at the end. We are finished. We can't simplify that anymore. So this is G of 2x. It basically took that x and doubled it. Then we are going to do F of whatever that answer was. The answer was this. We're going to do F parentheses, and we're just going to copy all of this. Don't think. It's F of whatever the answer for G of 2x is. G of 2x was this answer, so we're just going to copy it down. So this is now our input for x on the F equation. So we're going to come up to the F equation. We're going to copy down what we see. We're not going to think about it. We're just going to copy. I see a 3, so I write a 3. I then see an x. If I see an x, I put parentheses and I copy down what I need to plug in. I don't think about it. I just write it down. This is what I'm plugging in wherever I see an x on the F equation. And then we subtract 1 because I see that on the equation. Then we simplify it. If we simplify it, we distribute here. 3 times 4 is 12 x squareds. 3 times 4 is another 12. And then subtract 1 at the end. We combine all our like terms. 12x squared is 12x squared. Plus 12 minus 1 are like terms, so I can combine those to 11. And that is my final answer. I'm done right there. So a little bit trickier, but we're going to plug those in. I want you on your table to try E and F. And notice in this case, all we're doing is plugging in x. We're plugging in x. So think of going to the G equation. Here's my G equation. And if you plug in an x, that means wherever you see an x, put parentheses and put another x, which means ultimately we aren't going to change the first equation whatsoever. But that's a little tricky. I will give you some time to do that. Pause the video and try those with your table. Go. All right, once you have that, we're going to do a couple more practice problems. We are going to skip over to page, let's see, where do we want to go? We want to go all the way back here, keep going back here, keep going. There's lots of extra stuff. And this right here is where we need to go to. Number 7 on page 1056. This is page 1056. Alright, on these we are going to do the same thing we were doing, so hopefully you're kind of understanding what's going on a little bit. If not, we're just going to get some more practice. Okay, I'm going to use my, let's say, purple pen here for my f of x equation. Anytime I use the f of x equation, I'm using purple. G of x has been red, so we'll use that. Now we have a new equation, which is h. I will do the orange with that. And last we have is the j of x equation. I'll use my little blue pen here for the j of x equation. Okay, we are going to figure out these functions, these compositions, and we need to use them in the correct orders. So my g equation is red, my f equation is purple. We're going to use those two graphs. Notice we have this little O in the middle. That means basically we're going to rewrite this as the same equation as the same thing as g parentheses, that's first, f parentheses x. And what this simply means is g of f of x. It's kind of weird, but that's what it means. It means start on the closest letter to x, which is the f function. We're going to take the f of x function, because I see the x there, which means we're just going to copy down what we are using so far. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that equation and we're going to plug it into the g equation, because we don't have any input other than x. So the g of x equation, g of f of x equation, means you take the g equation and you plug in whatever f of x is. Which means we're going to come over here, and we're going to plug in 4x minus 3. And the reason is because this is what f of x is. And we're going to go to that g equation and we're going to take out the x and we're going to plug it wherever we see this x, we're going to plug in that equation. So g of 4x minus 3 is going to equal this equation, taking out the x, plugging in this 4x minus 3. So the rule is wherever you see an x on that equation, we're going to put a parentheses. And we're going to plug in whatever we want. We want 4x minus 3 right there at that x. We're going to then square it because we see a squared. We're going to write a minus sign because we see a minus sign. And we're going to write a 5 because we see a 5. And we're going to find out what is this answer after we plug in all the values. This is very important because right here we have to box or FOIL this. So think of your box. I know most people like the boxes. So we're going to go 4x minus 3, 4x minus 3 again because it's squared. And we're going to figure out our box here. 4 times 4 is 16x squared. 4 times minus 3 is negative 12x's. 4 times minus 3 again is negative 12x's. And negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. So altogether this turns into 16x squared minus 24x's plus 9. All of that is this, but notice we still have to subtract 5 at the end, which means our equation becomes 16x squared minus 24x plus 4. And that is our final product for g of f of x. I want you with your table to try b, and once you are done with b, you may then grab the homework page, which will be on the desk, and make sure that you can check them all off and they are accurate. If they are wrong, make sure you can fix them. The homework is due before you leave today. Okay, thank you guys. Good luck, and bring questions because next class period we will have a quiz over 13.1 through 13.4.